stretch your legs for a second. Everybody in this room is standing on a dot. I want you to think about a dot that you're standing on in a particular spot in your life where you're at right now. Where you're at right now. Okay, you can go ahead and just sit down for a second. Okay. Does everybody in the room have something to write with and write on? Everybody has something, right? I'm sure the basic leader course, everybody has something to write with and write on, right? I see all the specialists in here. Sorry, five in here, right? Yeah, got it. Okay, so something to write with and write on. And that's something you kind of want to make sure, not just your time in the military, but the rest of your life. Have something to write with and write on all the time. Write your notes, your thoughts, and everything else. Okay, one thing, don't write on your card I gave you, because that's got another purpose. Don't write on that. Number one, just remember this. Life is not a sprint. Marathon. Life is not a sprint. It's marathon. So I think about that all the time. Since I was diagnosed with cancer, I've been in Germany now for a little over 4 years. And since I've been here, next month will be my 10th marathon in Hamburg. And I think about that when I'm running sometimes. But for you and what I'm going to talk about today, life is not a sprint. It's a marathon. And you have got lots and lots of time. How many of you have been told that where you're at right now, you're lucky to be where you are? You're lucky to be where you are. You're living in Europe and you're traveling and you have the opportunity to go to school and you're doing this. How many of you have been home on leave and what's everybody doing that's still back home? It doesn't change. It's going to be the same thing 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. I go home and it's been a long time. I go home, the same people doing the same thing. But let me tell you about luck. Luck is strange because people will use that word about luck, but luck to me, there's no such thing as luck. Luck is nothing more than a mix of hard work and opportunity combined together. Talked about that last night with the guys fighting UFC. It's a combination of the two. So don't let anybody fool you. Nobody drugged you into and going to the recruiter office to end up where you're at now, right? I would hope not. They didn't push you in there. You went in on your own. So you decided to do that yourself. You walked in there and you made that decision, that opportunity, which is combined now with hard work, which has brought you where you're at now. Okay? So what I want you to do on your notes, please write down JUMP. Write down J-U-M-P. Has anybody seen a video by Steve Harvey? He talks about jump. Raise your hand if you've seen it. You got to see it. Is it good? Yes, sir. It's incredible. Absolutely. What you all did, and the reason why, people back home, people are going to see this, and they're still sitting there, sitting on YouTube, figuring out what they're going to do for pizza tonight, or is Kansas going to cover against Duke, or is Oregon, how's Oregon, doing the same thing. No. You jumped. And you jumped into that recruiter office. You jumped into what you're doing now. And now you are at where you're at now, which is if you had to pick anywhere in the world that you wanted to be right now, this is the place to be. And the reason why I say that is that when I was diagnosed with cancer and he came in and said stage 3, and when the doctor comes in and he's crying, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. Saying this should have been diagnosed months ago. And when he left, he said the nurse will come in. I had a few thoughts going through my mind. But the one thing I immediately thought about was how lucky I've been to be where I'm at and to do what I've done so far. Traveled the world, done so much because of the military. I was prior enlisted, got out, went to college, was an officer, did that, got out, had a business, and then working for the government again, working for the Army. So, that's all I thought about. And so that thought of being lucky and being fortunate is the only thing that came to my mind. But luck doesn't just happen. It combines a couple different things. So don't let anybody kid you about that because you did jump. So, we talked about the dots, and you jumped. Steve Jobs gave a famous presentation at Stanford University, and he talked about connecting the dots. That in order to be successful in life, you have to have trust, and you've got to be able to connect the dots. That you can look back on your life, all of you can look back on your life. The one thing is, you never regret anything that happened in the past. You can't do anything about that. You look forward of what's going to happen forward. But all of you can look behind you from where you were at before, where you went to school, what happened in your life, and everything else, and you can connect the dots to here. But forward, you connect the dots, you go forward, you have to trust. And he talked about that. You have to be able to trust to go forward, to go from step to step to step, as whatever it is you're going to do. And you've done that. So the big thing about that is opportunity. So as you're standing on this dot that Steve Jobs talked about, and you're right here at the basic leader course, you're just beginning to start this career where you're at now. It is a huge, you have no idea how many people, as I go back home, and I'm back in the States, and I'm speaking in high school, speaking in colleges, speaking to people looking for jobs, trying to get a job, can't go to school. 65% of Americans age 35 and above never have completed one college class. But yet you can go to school for free. And those people that can hear that, you know what? Maybe you should jump. But you didn't jump. Because I say that with pride because less than 1% of Americans have ever served. Less than 1%. That's counting everybody. So the fact that you're in this room is the reason why you're so special. It's the reason why you need to make sure that sometimes people come tell you, remind you how special you are. That is, that I told myself that if I make it through what I'm going through, no matter what happens afterwards, and I have goals and dreams and they're still going on, I'm always going to do this. That's why I'm talking to First Sergeant, Command Sergeant Major. Hey, let me know when you want me to come speak. Let me know when you want me to come speak. I will be there no matter what it is. But sometimes, as you're going through life and there's trials and tribulations and everything is going on, sometimes you forget about not how good you have it, but how lucky you have it based on the hard work and that opportunity that you combine together that Steve Jobs talked about. So, this is, on your piece of paper, what I'd like you to do is write down work. Write down, or Arbeit, if you're, for those of you living in Germany. I'm not sure what it is in Romania. I think we got 4 of you from Romania. If you look inside your card, I have a little something written there for you. If I messed it up, you blame Google Translate. Okay? I messed it up. You can't blame me. Well, you can. Don't blame my wife. She's German and Hungarian, so not her fault. So, work. From this point on, and this is the advantage you have. That's why I'm glad there's a lot of officers going to be watching this. But on that word work, what I want you to do is put a line through it. Just put a line through it. From this point on, everything is opportunity. Nothing is work. Nothing is work. The one thing I got last night, watching these UFC fighters and watching them fight last night, and Sasha Sharman, the one I interviewed last night, who's getting ready to fight in 2 weeks in St. Petersburg. His whole world, everything he has is in this dream. This dream. This is his opportunity. So for you right now, this is your opportunity. An opportunity that many would give the chance to do. The chance to travel. Education. Mentorship. The people you get to meet. The people you get to see. I talk in my book about travel. Travel is huge. The opportunity to go see things and do things. When I was diagnosed with cancer, the first thing I thought about was the places I've been, the places I've seen, the people that have been through things worse than me. I see several of you in here with right shoulder sleeve sickness. Things that you've seen, things that you're going to see. But it's all about opportunity and where you're at right now. Nothing is work. But you know what? I'm every day I see senior officers. Every day. Walking around with their head down, no motivation, no enthusiasm, no nothing. You know why? It's the finish line. It's the finish line. They're just trying to get to the finish line. Whether it's 20 years, 22, 25, 30, they're just trying to get there. And then once they get to the finish line, they're just going to hold on, whatever's going to happen. For you, you got the best of both worlds. Because you get this opportunity of all this leadership, mentorship, school, education, all of this stuff. But when you get to the line, whether it is you decide to do one more time to get out, or you stay in to be Sergeant Major of the Army, you're going to be in your early 40s. You've got another 25 years to do whatever it is you want to do. And I didn't figure it out until I started speaking. And I went to Under Armour. And I spoke at the marathon in New York City where I ran on November 1st. When I went to West Point, went to LA and San Diego, I traveled around. You know what I see in leadership positions in organizations all over the world? NCOs. Prior NCOs, retired NCOs. Everywhere. Bachelor's degrees, master's degrees. But they're getting out with all kinds of credibility from what you're doing now. So, when you look at that, and as I just walk around amazed that people, how can you not be excited and motivated about life, about what you have, about what that opportunity that you have to do today, tomorrow, the next day. Many of you are thinking about, okay, it's a holiday weekend, right? Well, it's a holiday weekend for some, but it's a hustle for others. All right? And that's what it is, all right? I mean, where I grew up, I didn't graduate high school. I'm talking about in the book. I was homeless. I got out. I enlisted in the military. I slept on the doorstep of the recruiter. That's how I got in, because I wouldn't leave. And so they let me in. Then once I got in, I did my time. Then I went to ROTC. I did that. But I'm always hustling. I'm teaching 4 college classes right now. 3 online, 1 in person for Maryland. I'm working on my second book. Got a speaking business. Hustle. That's what it's all about. And that's the difference. The difference between those of us that are prior enlisted, those of you prior NCO, and everybody in here is about to become an NCO here real soon if you're not already, is that work. You might be smarter than me. You might come from a better neighborhood than me. You might have gone to a better high school. Maybe you graduated high school. Maybe you got into Ivy League school. But guess what? You can't outwork me. And that's the bottom line. You can't do it. And you can't have more enthusiasm than me. And that's why I'm crushing them every day. Every day. People upset. How did you sell 80,000 books? I didn't sell them. They sold themselves. I just went out and told my story. That's all. And that's about, it's about, you know, I use that word work. I didn't even use that word work. Because I know my man, Eric Thomas, he uses that all the time. And Eric's always talking about hustle and work and work. Anybody heard of Eric Thomas? Anybody know who Eric Thomas is? Okay. Since a lot of you haven't heard of Eric Thomas, and Eric and I were just going back and forth the other day, there's a little story that Eric talks about. And some of you that have heard Eric's niche have heard this. But this is about success. And this is the reason why there's people just trying to get to the finish line, and why people that, like you all, are going to the finish line. Whatever it is you may decide to do in life. Like I said, nobody says that you got to stay and be sergeant major of the Army. You're serving your country now, whatever you decide to do. So, Eric gives this analogy, right? And he talks about somebody who came to him and said, hey, I want to be successful. I want to do this. I want to have all this money. I want this. I want that. He said, fine, meet me tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, out by the water, and we'll talk about success. So next day he gets his swim trunks on, gets his shirt on. He goes out there and meets him out there by the water and says, okay, you want to be successful? Yes, I want to be successful. Good. Get on out here in the water. Gets out there to his kneecaps. Says, come on in, get a little further. So he gets out there up to his waist. Come on in a little bit further. Gets all the way up here. He said, this guy's crazy. I'm talking about wanting to be successful. Just tell me the secret how to be successful. But yet he's taking me through, what's this all about? And all of a sudden, he grabs the top of his head and boom, puts his head under the water and holds it and holds it and holds it and holds it and then puts it up. And when he comes up, he said, he let his air out a little bit, let it out. He said, what's the only thing you can think about? He said, what do you think he said? Breathe, right? Until you want to be successful, it's from Eric Thomas. I don't think I stole his stuff. But until you want to be successful, as bad as it is you want to breathe, then other people are just going to outwork you. They're going to outwork you. I got people, well, you must have had a job and you could have wrote your book. I wrote my book from 11 at night, my wife will tell you, 11 at night to 3 in the morning for 5 months, every day. Made the decision I was going to do it. And what did I think about? Not graduating high school. Sleeping on a recruiter doorstep. Being an NCO. All the things all the things that I've been through life, that's what I thought about. So that notebook you have, that journal, whatever it is you want, I talk about journal a lot in the book, but things you need to write down and keep track of. One thing that we talk about in the resiliency course, many of you have been to the Master Resiliency course or been through what we talk about in the Army, is that every day, and I won't ask the question because I asked it last time and like 3 people raised their hand, but every day you're supposed to do what? Okay, how many? 3, right? Minimum of 3. But you can have as many as you want. But minimum of 3. And that's one of those things, it's kind of like doing PT, it's kind of like eating right. Your subconscious mind can be tricked from your conscious mind. So what happens is when you wake up every day, and I did this during cancer treatment, because my mind kept telling me, you're going to die, you're not going to make it, you better tell your son and your daughter, you better start telling people, because I could look in the doctor's eyes, didn't look good, looked at everybody else's eyes, didn't look good. So what I did, I wrote down every day 3 things that I was thankful for. And all of a sudden my body just started changing, because your subconscious mind can be tricked into staying positive. So you start doing negative things. So it's those things we talk about. You know, you don't have to just keep it at a minimum of just doing 3. So I gave everybody a thank you card. Thanks in my book is probably, I would say, right up there with the most important thing. You know, I grew up with a single mom, and we didn't have much. We didn't have much of anything. Many times we didn't have any food. But the one thing she taught me was thanks. It's about giving thanks and giving thanks, because the karma comes back. So when I got diagnosed with cancer, I gave the doctor a thank you card, because I know it wasn't easy for him. It wasn't easy for the nurse. But here was the key of the thank you card. There was a receptionist out in the waiting area that helped me for my biopsy. And she was Latino, from Pueblo in Mexico, married with a little child. Husband picked up and left several weeks before. So I was talking to her about school, and I was trying to get my mind off these biopsies getting ready to come up. And she said, well, my dream was to come here and go to college, but that's kind of out the window now. But I have 2 good jobs, and at least I can provide for my son. So what I did after the biopsy, I went outside, sat under the tree with a thank you card, just like you all have. And I sat under the tree, and I wrote her a long, long note and told her, I teach at community college in Kansas City. You're as smart as any of those people. And remember, it's work. It's not where you come from, it's where you're going. Your past does not equal your future. So I wrote her a long note, and I gave it to her. And as I left, I looked through the double doors as I left, I saw her crying as she read it, and I didn't see her since. So, several weeks ago now, it's been a couple months, she contacts me and says, can you come to my graduation at the University of Kansas? I'm graduating with my degree in nursing. But more so, I've been accepted to medical school. I'm going to be a doctor. And so I told her that sometimes, and you all know this about somebody believing in you, whoever it is, and I'm glad that I was able to give that to her, and I was able to believe in her. But what she didn't understand, by me giving that thanks to her, what it did for me, is that I didn't know what was going on either. I just know that I had stage 3 cancer, and everybody looked like they were really scared. So, but by giving her that, I knew that I made somebody's life better at that moment, in that time. And so, I was a complete changed person. I knew that no matter what happened, okay, and I have my own faith, and I have that, but no matter what happens, this is what I'm going to do. So I continue to do that. And I went around that day, and I just did, thanks, and thanks, and thanks. And I could just feel it. So as I was going through treatment, and I continued to thank people, and do the other things I talked about, silence, and about meditation, and yoga, and eating right, and all the other kind of things. But the thanks was huge. And I do this every time. I started it at Fort Leonard Wood, and then I did it again at Fort Carson, at the basic leader course, and I did it here again the last class I was at, and I'm going to do it again with you all. And so what we'll do is, I'll collect the cards afterwards, and when we're done, you can write them and you can give them to me. But what I did is I have everybody write a thank you card to somebody, and I mail it. Now, if it's APO to APO, it's free, no problem. If it's somewhere, Romania, or if it's somewhere around the world, I had one last time in China, don't worry about it. I got it. I'll take care of it, and I'm going to send it for you. But here's what happens. Every single time. In the last class, I got over 100 people contacted me and said, it was amazing, both ways. My grandmother, my wife, my sister, my whatever, she was just shocked that she got this note from me. But what happened was, after I wrote it and sent it, things started happening. And if anybody's heard of the law of belief, the law of attraction, the secret, it is true. If you believe it and you feel it, it happens. It comes back. It's karma, and it comes back to you. When you give to others, it comes back to you. A big part of you and your life, when you go from being enlisted, and a lot of you in your are, I see a few Sergeant 5s, but when you become a non-commissioned officer, it changes. It changes. I have not seen Command Sergeant Major from RSS. Where's Sergeant Major? He's in the background there, okay? The last time I saw Command Sergeant Major, he was Sergeant 5, and I was company commander. But you can look at people and you just know at that age. And the commander before me are good friends and still good friends. He teaches at Fort Leavenworth at the commander college. But we just knew that started Wallace someday was going to do big things, whatever it may be. And it's the same thing with you. You can start picking those things out, feeling those out, getting mentors and talking to other people. So what I want you to do before you leave today is you're going to go ahead and fill out that card. You're going to address it to somebody and then go and give it to me, and I'm going to go ahead and send it off for you. All right? And just thank somebody that helped you get to where you're at today. And you don't have to do that now. We can do it. We can do it in a few minutes. One thing I want you to remember: we talk about connecting the dots. And this is a great place to talk about this because there's a great book by a guy named Viktor Frankl who wrote a book called In Search of Meaning, and it's about his time at Dachau, which is not very far from here, just outside Munich, and also in Auschwitz. And what he talked about was everybody has the ability to do two things every day. You can act, or you can get acted upon. You can act on life, or life will act on you. When I go speak to inner city schools, the first thing I tell kids is, look, I understand, whether it's Chicago or St. Louis or Oakland or Miami, it doesn't matter, okay? You have a choice every day. You can blame other people. You can blame the teachers and the police. You blame everybody else. But somewhere in the world, somebody's got problems worse than you. I can take you to a 16-year-old kid in Syria. I guarantee his life is worse than yours is right now. I can take you to a teenager who's at the cancer clinic, who's terminal, who's going to die in a couple weeks, has it worse than you. So quit blaming other people. So what you have to do, and sometimes you got to remind athletes of this too, is that you have choices, and you make that choice. And so Viktor Frankl talked about that no matter how brutal it was in the concentration camps or in Dachau and work camps, whatever it was, he had a choice every day. You all have a choice. You can act on life, or life will act on you. So if you're not doing your, hunt the good stuff every day, and all of a sudden, things just seem to be, this is happening and that's happening, and, my platoon sergeant's on me about this, and first sergeant's this, and this, and this. Back up and realize that you can change a lot of that stuff, and you can make changes to that. And that's why I use that journal, and I write that stuff down, and that is huge. And it's with everything, whether it's fitness, whether it's diet, whether it's your life, whether it's what you're going through. I know that a lot of you either have time or don't have time for school. It could be either way. I know a lot of you are constantly being deployed, especially if you're in 2SCR or Special Forces 10th Group or wherever you're at. But as soon as you get that window to go to school, that's that time to work. That's the time to go to school. This is an opportunity to take it, especially online. I teach a class open, and it feels like in 5 minutes every semester. I teach 2 or 3 online interpersonal communication classes for Barstow Community College, which is right outside Fort Irwin. I've been teaching there since 1997, online for 9 years. Class fills up like that. We use my book, 7 Habits, and then of course a directed book by the college. And if you send me an email, you can't get in or whatever, you tell me who you are, you were in this class, get in there because you got your tuition, but you need a book, I will send you the book, and I'll send you the book. Okay, and that is Covey 7 Habits we use, and my book. No excuses. And that is interpersonal communication class. But for those of you that, again, you've jumped already, but a lot of you that haven't started college, now's the time. Now's the time. Eric Thomas just finished his doctorate degree. He didn't graduate high school. Was homeless. And so if you want to do that, you do. And that's that opportunity thing. That's that positive act or get acted upon. That when you go and you're doing that, we talk about crossing out work, and it's just an opportunity. So when you're going to school, when you're doing all the things they offer, it becomes just opportunity. And you look at it that way. Because when I go back, and hopefully you all go get a chance to go back home, you find out there isn't a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of places. I was horrified when I went to Detroit. And I'd never been to Detroit before. I'd just been through the airport. But I drove to Detroit. And I was going to local high schools just to talk about, I was horrified that is a place that is the United States. But, again, everybody can get out of any situation after get acted upon. I think that mentorship, and I just want to talk about this before we end it, I think mentorship and peer interpersonal interaction, peer communication is huge. And that's what you're getting right here. And that is, it isn't the way it used to be 20 years ago, maybe even 9 years ago. You know, most people, if I talk to my peers that I work with, they don't have a clue what Snapchat is, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn. They don't know any of that kind of stuff, all right? You have that, and that's what's big in your world is the opportunity to interact and to be able to network with each other. So, and to talk to people. But just like I talk to the people in the school, if you have goals where you want to be, you want to be a command sergeant major, you want to be sergeant major of the Army, you want to get a PhD, you want to teach college, maybe you want to go coach college football or whatever. Everything is out there. There's no excuses. I get excuses all the time. Well, you must have the right job. That's why you were able to connect with this NFL player, that NBA player, or interview that UFC guy last night. No, I didn't. I got on social media just like you could do. The difference is, after I did my opportunity all day, and I taught my 4 college classes until 10 o'clock at night, my wife will attest, then you can work on your my speaking job till midnight, then write my book till 2 in the morning, and then from 2 to 3, because it's still early in the evening in the West Coast, I can hustle. I'm doing people. So you have a choice. Act or get acted upon. You can have anything in life if you're willing to do that. And so what I'd like to leave you with today is, again, I want to go back to talking about the dots. The dot. Think about the dot that you're standing on right now in this schoolhouse. You know, I've already gotten feedback from the class that just finished right before this, telling me that they got back and now I'm going to school, I'm doing this, I contacted this, and rolling. So take what you're doing here, use this energy and everything that's happened here. You know, and not everybody is going to be. You can't help everybody. You can't help everybody. You know, if you ever watch T.D. Jakes, I was watching T.D. last night saying, he can gospel and he can sermon, but I can't take care of all 30,000 people when I talk to somebody. So you may have a friend, you know, a coworker, a colleague, somebody, a fellow student in here that you try and try and try and try, but sometimes you just got to let people be and figure things out because it starts sucking energy from you. So you want to surround yourself with people with the exact same goals and going the same places you do. So we all know people walking around complaining and everything, oh, this and this and that and that. Officers will tell you, oh, it's just soldiers always complaining. Oh, no, Mr. Officer. I'm there every day walking them down the halls, walking them down the campus at where we're at in Stuttgart. And it's a reverse. Isn't it changed? Sergeant first class, Master Sergeant, first sergeant. Man, he's ready. Bachelor's degree, 22 years. He's getting ready to go. He's getting it. Kid's getting ready, you know, getting into high school, and he's ready to go into that next step. Ready to maybe use that 9/11 GI Bill to work on a PhD, or thinking about going to work for Nike, or thinking about, because he's been connecting, he's been interacting. And there's the other person. The game has changed, okay? Because that was just an old adage that, oh, soldiers like to complain. Oh, no, everybody complains. All right, and that's okay, as long as you complain in the group. But just remember, please, think of everything as an opportunity from this day forward. Think about the dot you're in, and you're responsible for going from your dot to the next dot. And nobody really knows where that is. The reason being, and this is the final plug, the reason being is you have such an easy time going from dot to dot, and my peers and those before me, those that are officers, have a difficult time. My daughter is second lieutenant, and when she graduated college, she knew she was going to Fort Leonard Wood. She's an engineer. But as soon as she got to Fort Leonard Wood, she knew she was going to Fort Carson. This is my sponsor. This is where I'm going. This is my job. These are my strikers. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. When you're an NCO or you're enlisted and you go to your assignment, do you know who your sponsor is? Do you know exactly where you're going? Do you? No. Not usually. But you know what? You've learned to trust. You've learned to trust. I went through my entire military career, like many officers do. Platoon leader, you know, XO, company commander, battalion S3, go to this school, get out, do this job. I knew what everything was going to be. You don't. But yet when the game changes, remember, the game of life is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So when it changes, all of a sudden all this trust and everything that command sergeant major and first sergeant and everybody are instilling you to trust, it all comes into play. Because it's difficult when you've never had to trust. It's difficult later in life to trust. Very, very difficult. So just remember that. that you have when you go from that dot and you look back to your dots of high school, where you're at, wherever you're at, to where you're at now. And everybody here should be proud of where you're at. Because this is exactly where I'm sure in your recruiting office where you plan, probably didn't even dream you'd be in Europe going to this school. But every single one of the folks that I talked to in the last class, that I talked to Leonard Wood and I talked to Carson, I said, how was the training? How was this? How was that? Every single one of them said, now that I'm back, yeah, you know, a lot of times when you're in a schoolhouse situation, there's a lot going on, it's the fire hose, but as soon as you get a chance to step away and you look at everything, everybody, at all 3 schools that I've been to, said it was amazing. The cadre give 1,000%. It's amazing what we got out of it. And again, you get out of it what you want to get out of it. If you don't want to get anything out of it, if your colleague doesn't want to get anything out of it, your fellow specialist, then you're not going to get anything out of it. But if you want to get everything out of it, it's that hustle. So you either act or acted upon. You're in hustle mode or you're not hustle mode. All right? Thank you very much.